We are a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to our free faith. We welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome our visitors. Perhaps you are new and seeing this on our YouTube page later. We're so glad you're here. We invite you to connect with us in the comments or via our website or our Facebook page. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations and systems of society. We bear witness to the pain and suffering Indigenous and other persons of color in all communities across this nation. And we continue in our commitment to dismantle systems of oppression in order to build a better world. Black Lives Matter. Our church and Facebook page have information about our activities. Also, members and friends, please remember that the best way to stay updated on congregational news is to read the Newsnet emails, the weekly e-blasts, the monthly online newsletter, and our Facebook posts. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We worship together, though we are apart and at a distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively. And now our opening music, which is We Will Build a Land. Our theme today is widening the circle. And our opening words are from Reverend Sarah Eileen Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith. We hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love. Love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. Our meditative music this morning is Ain't Gonna Let Nobody Turn Me Around. While you're listening, please breathe in, breathe out, find your comfortable spot. We invite you to share your joys and sorrows via the chat box while our meditative music plays, and I will release those after the music. I am so excited to introduce our speaker today. Carol Caffey grew up in Tuscaloosa from the age of 13 to 33, and she claims it as her home. She graduated from Tuscaloosa High School in 1968, or 69, sorry, want to get it right. She obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in early childhood education from the University of Alabama and worked as a kindergarten teacher in West Blockton and then Selma, Alabama. After receiving her master's degree at the University of Alabama, she became a reading specialist and worked the 20th Street Elementary and Stafford Elementary schools here in Tuscaloosa. She continued to work on her doctorate during that time, but decided her best education would be to see the world. Carol spent 5 years teaching for the Department of Defense in dependent schools in Germany, and then taught 10 years in San Francisco, California. It is there she obtained a master's in education administration with a focus in urban reform. Finally, working in Durham, North Carolina as a gifted education teacher, computer coordinator, science teacher, and a curriculum coach, resulted in a broad understanding of teaching and learning in a variety of different schools. She retired after being an assistant principal in North Carolina for 6 years, and it was time to come home to Alabama. In 2012, after many adventures in several states over 40 years, she was needed at her family farm. She became a business owner, created a bed and amp breakfast in Vance, Alabama, and managed the family's rental properties. She has had and always been involved in race relations and continues that involvement in Tuscaloosa. She is now the founder of Building Bridges Institute for Racial Reconciliation. So please welcome Carol and let us hear her message.
Well, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today and to see all of you. I will share that I looked at your website and checked out, your philosophy, and hearing your opening today really makes me grateful for your organization. I actually first heard of you when I was 13 at Eastwood Junior High School. My boyfriend at the time attended your congregation, and friends had questioned him about it. They weren't understanding it, but later on in North Carolina, I attended off and on as I was seeking out my own spiritual journey. So I have a little bit of a connection with you already, I feel like. I'm very grateful for the work that you do already in racial justice and social justice, and in religious justice too. That inclusiveness and openness, I think, is fantastic. So let me tell you about building bridges. As her bio already said, I want to not repeat anything, but I may, forgive me if I do, as I talk. She talked a lot about my teaching career, and what I hadn't really put in that bio is that beginning in Tuscaloosa in 1966 as a sophomore, 7 students from Druid High School came and integrated Tuscaloosa High School. That was actually the first integration of Tuscaloosa High School, and that was mind-opening for me. As I grew up in Georgia and Tennessee and Alabama, I witnessed racist events. My father, at one point in his life, said, "You can say I'm racist, I'm proud of it." So I grew up in a family where I heard overtly and covertly, racist teachings, and I never understood it and I never agreed with it. So especially after high school, when I met someone, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bloody Tuesday event in Tuscaloosa, that's something that's becoming more well known. In my Problems of Democracy class, African-American student, as had happened in my 10th grade class, ended up sitting next to me. I befriended them, we became friends, and I learned first about the Bloody Tuesday event my senior year in high school in 1969. So it always peaked. And in all those teaching experiences, not always, but most of the time, I was teaching in predominantly African-American schools or completely African-American schools. I was that white teacher that went in and integrated as a faculty. And that was always a very interesting experience. In San Francisco, I taught at a school where the administrator, she was excellent, taught a lot about multiculturalism, and we taught what was then in an Afrocentric school, and it was all about uplifting African-American culture and teaching African-American history to those students. And it was a very memorable day when I was teaching 3rd grade, and it was Black History Month, and they showed the riots in Birmingham and the German shepherds and the fire hoses. That was the first time I had seen anything about that event. I didn't know about it. And of course, they all looked at me and said, "Aren't you from Alabama? What about this?" So I learned quickly and was very open to having serious discussions and acknowledging who I was in my past. And it always led to even more learning and growing. So that's a lot of my background of how I got involved in race relations. When I lived in North Carolina, I first actually attended a training where I have now founded this institution to continue the training. In Greensboro, they had for 20 years been creating this training called Dismantling Racism. And they had piggybacked off of a training in New Orleans, Louisiana, called From Survival to Beyond, which has been going on for 40 years. And I've attended those trainings, and I've also led trainings in North Carolina. So when I came back to Tuscaloosa and I started getting involved in race relations, I don't know if you've heard of these organizations. I joined Tuscaloosa United. That was the first thing I heard of. This was like 11 years ago now. I joined 10-4 Corporation. And I was a board member there for a couple of years. And I had been involved in the Civil Rights Task Force reconciliation circles, where we met for a year. And there was some dialogue going on. And my own church, Forest Lake United Methodist, also is involved in race relations. So friendships and connections kept developing. Just like always, I made some mistakes. I would say the wrong thing. That always happens when you want to talk about race in an honest, genuine way. And I've continued friendships. I always say I kind of have a foot in both cultures, African-American culture and white culture. When I moved here, first I joined African-American church out in Vance, where my farm is. And the interesting thing there was I was told I would be run out of town by my father. He said, "You cannot do that." And I did it anyway. And it ended up being a wonderful experience. I opened the gate, as we teach in the training year, everyone's a gatekeeper, and I opened the gates of the rental properties of my father and started renting to African Americans and Hispanics. and other people of color. And my sister said, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, because now I'm the manager. And by the way, it's illegal not to. So, I've learned and had dialogues and grown in my experiences here. So out of all that, I would make recommendations. I would suggest that we have this training here in Tuscaloosa. And I couldn't get anyone else to kind of own it. And so, as you described in your opening, I love it. I took the courage and I prayed, and I do meditate. I'm a very spiritual person, and it's like God has brought me to this point in my life. And if I really believe in this training, I need to create it. So that's what I've done. I founded this organization 2 years ago in 2020. And I have a wonderful board. We have been supported by the city. We've met with the mayor. We have the Chamber of Commerce working with us. And Plum Grove Baptist Church has donated their community development center upstairs area for us to have as an office. And we do have connections with the University of Alabama from some board members, and Stillman College with some board members. We're hoping to develop a closer working relationship with Shelton State as well. So I'm just very blessed that we have launched this training, this institute, and I'm very happy with its success. Maybe you've seen some of the newspaper articles that just came out when we had our ribbon cutting. And I'm just blessed to move forward. And so thank you for letting me come tell you about it here. I really am passionate, and I believe that through basic training, what's needed is to step back and really talk more in depth about that elephant that seems to be in the room everywhere, race relations or racism. Right now, it seems a lot of people like to talk about diversity and equity, but they seem to have more challenges when they talk about racism. I want you to think for just a minute, when you have topics about race come up, or when you have interactions, just think in your mind, how does that go? What does that look like? If anybody wants to answer, you can in just a word. How does that go for you? I've had a lot of those dialogues in Tuscaloosa in these different organizations. Anybody want to throw out a word?
Awkward.
Well, for me and most people that do answer, it can be awkward. It can go well. I've had some times that's very inspirational and a very deep connection. And I've also had times where it's gone very badly. And I've had to go back and apologize and reconcile myself with someone, usually a person of color. And both of those experiences have enriched me and taught me a lot. And I think that's what happens. I think a lot of people are awkward or uncomfortable because we're not used to having those dialogues. And we may not even have ways that we interact together. One thing I've done, especially since I moved back here, as someone had mentioned, knowing Reverend Gardner, knowing these different organizations that are predominantly Black, going to predominantly Black churches and worshiping with them and speaking and befriending people and having that a part of my life has been intentional for me. And I think that's something that helps in the comfort of being able to talk about these issues and the way you talk about them. So I think to have racism really eliminated, and that is our goal in this institute. It's not going to happen right away, but that is the goal, that we can have conversations, we can learn how to have conversations, and every person can learn more how to look inwardly, because I think it's an inward journal for each individual, but it's also a collective journey that we need to dialogue and talk amongst ourselves. And until we can really do that comfortably and respectfully with, as you say, love and compassion, then the problem's still going to be around. So that's kind of where this program starts. It's a seminar, first of all, is the main aspect of it. Is an 18-hour seminar on a Friday evening, all day Saturday, and a Sunday afternoon, where it's not a lecture and a teaching, it's really more a common exploration, and it's intentionally held with about 50% African Americans, 50% white people, so that we can really hear each other's experiences and see where people are in the present, like right here in Tuscaloosa. What are you experiencing? People take turn sharing, where white people will share their experience and Black people listen, so you can really learn more about each person's experience, and you flip it around and have African American people speaking, And white people are listening and cannot respond, cannot say anything. You just listen to their shared experience and how they see racism and how they see things changing and what they think needs to happen. So it's really an intense, deep conversation. It was very transformative for me when I first participated in it in North Carolina, and having it and several times now. Each time I go a little deeper, as well as having watched people in the trainings just have aha moments and start really changing some of their shift. Anyway, I believe this can be really effective in Tuscaloosa, and I believe it can be transformative in our city. So this is a basic approach. What we are is an institute of learning. I deliberately named it an institute, and what we are is one that's specific to the topic of racism, because a lot of people want to talk about all kinds of diversity. We really acknowledge that there's all kinds of oppression, there's all kinds of misinformation, confusion about a lot of topics, but being able to address it with this specific topic, I think, is important. We are a think tank about how to communicate. My board is of both races and actually several gender orientations, and we talk together, we reconcile amongst ourselves, we have good discussions, and even there, sometimes someone will say, no, don't say that again. No, we need to say it this way. Don't say it that way. And that's part of what we want to help people understand. How do we talk and discuss things with respect and with love? We say, let's take everyone where they are and let's learn. And when we know better, then we can do better. You know, it's not about shaming. It's not about saying this is bad or good. As you know, so much of politics and opinions are about blaming the other person or labeling the other person or saying negative things about the other person. And this is really flipping it around to do the exact opposite, to really hear where people are coming from and to have pauses and learn how to listen, to understand and kind of take it in, and then have, after people share, you know, kind of discuss our similarities and differences and grow together on this topic. So that's really what it's about. What we are not is someone that thinks we have all the answers, and we're not going to avoid the hard truths, experiences, and emotions. We do talk some about the history of our country, of course, and a little bit about the civil rights movement, but we do focus a lot on where we are now. We do not offer quick solutions, but we offer people sharing experiences and talking their truth, whatever that truth is, with the differences. And after that seminar, we do have what we call communication circles that can be for a period of time so that you can delve deeper. For example, one study I did, which would be it could be a topic in this group, is called Me and White Supremacy. So I have done this journaling and studying about my own self and looking at my background. And for white people that would like to do that together collectively, for example, we can have a communication circle or like a book study that we do something like that together. African-American people quite often will talk about their own internalized racism and how they deal with it, whether it's anger, resentment. There's a lot of pain and anger out there. And to help them with African-American facilitators, because we have trainers of both races, of course, to really look at how they've internalized racism and how they act and how they behave, and how to work through that for themselves. I'm a white lady. I can't really talk to that. That's why it's very intentionally a board and an organization with both races involved and trainers and both experts in both sides of the field, so that we can dialogue together and grow together. Anyway, that's pretty much about the organization. As I said, we have these components. I do believe passionately in this, that this institute will be a bridge building connection in our city. I think it will help in our city. The mayor has allowed us to have a meeting to talk about how to have city staff trained. The school system has been open to having trainings for the teachers. Not in the school system itself, but for teachers to have more awareness and how to dialogue and how to talk. I just, stories again, I just cringe sometimes when in education, I've heard people say things like out of ignorance, really. I think a lot of this is ignorance. So we want to teach people. There was a complaint at a school board. This was actually in San Francisco, where you would think things were more liberal. and a biracial family with biracial kids divorced and decided to go to different schools. The white mother and the black father had two children who were pretty much looked white and looked black, but they were both half and half. They were biracial. And when the father and the black child came to the other school, and the white student introduced her sister and father to the teacher said, there is no way that can be your sister. You're lying. That cannot be your father. You're white. What do you mean? You can't have a black sister. You can't have a black father. You're white. And then it just, blew up a whole discussion in their family. Unfortunately, they hadn't really prepared the child for having that kind of reception either, which was interesting. But, sometimes there's things that just blow my mind that people still don't understand and don't know. And I think that's a part of this institute. We go through so many topics of intrinsic bias and history of race and how it is really a social construct, and it's not based on biology. I'm amazed that I gave a talk. I've been speaking on panels and things for the last 11 years. And my father came up to me after I gave a talk and said, I still don't believe in intermarriage because blacks and whites are a different species. That was still his thought. And it just blows my mind still. But that's what was taught. That's what people learned to believe. That's what was published. Back in the 60s, that's what was published. So we want to help educate people and open people's minds. And I have found that a lot of people in my church, obviously you have an interest. There are a lot of white people that want to understand more and know better how to have dialogue, what kind of things is it that you don't say and don't do? And when you do, because if you talk about race, you're going to say something that comes out and feels racist to a black person. It's going to happen. It just is. And you can learn from it and prepare for it, but also what to do when that happens. How do you actually apologize? How do you just say, I didn't know that it was that way, and explain it to me more? Or also part of this institute is explaining it to people so that the Black people out in the world who keep hearing those things over and over, it's like a bruised, sensitive spot on their arm. They overreact. It bothers them because they hear it from so many people. And the more we can learn to not say things like that and to not offend, then the easier it is for us to reconcile and be in relationship with each other. So there's just all kinds of avenues that I think this institute's going to help. I'm going to wrap it up. If there's anything you want to ask me about, I'll be glad to tell you about it. There are other organizations in Tuscaloosa, and because I've worked with every one of them, I was seeking them all out and finding them. I have good relationships with all of them. We're collaborating, and we're going to be in this together. And I really want to have more and more churches also collaborating and working together, having joint worship services, having joint hosting of these seminars. The way you could help with your organization is if you're interested in being a partner and hosting a training at your church. I don't know what kind of facility you have. It does take a pretty good sized facility because our training would be about 30 people. And then we would have a Sunday and Friday evening kind of snack time and a lunch served on Saturday for all the participants, and have the training at a location. People attending the training and paying a fee for it helps promote it. My vision is that as we have some people who are paying a fee and we have sliding scale for others, then it helps generate the next training and the next training. We want to have a training really every 3 months in the city of Tuscaloosa until a lot of people get trained. And some people would be able to afford the training and some wouldn't. So we would definitely want to have some donated funds. So of course you can donate funds. As we talked a little more, we have a vision of having a Zoom technology room that's professionally manned, and Stillman College has actually offered, and the technical director there, the IT director, has given us a budget and items to purchase so that we can really manage a Zoom room on a professional level and have a big screen where we can see all 30 faces on the screen, and really do everything high tech. So that budget right now is $12,000. And the cost of a seminar, paying the trainers and developing all the materials and everything, we budgeted right now for $4,000. So those are our goals as to what to raise, say $14,000, $15,000. So every amount of donations can help, but people can also help with their skills, their time. If someone has a lot of technology skill, and could help us when we have a Zoom training. If someone could help with serving food and greeting people and registering people for the seminar, that would help. Right now, we have some contracted workers, mainly the trainers, and one person that's doing marketing for us. But it's really yours truly, myself, that's doing all this on my retired time, just because I'm so passionate about it. But I do hope we can build up this organization so that we can eventually have a paid staff person to run the seminars and do the day-to-day workings. So I guess that's it. If there's I think there's hopefully a little bit of time left. I haven't gone over that. There can be some questions and answers.
Well, Carol, thank you so much. I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and close out the service, and then we have what we call coffee and conversation afterwards.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure lots of us will have questions. I know I have some myself. So thank you so much. And our closing words today are by Audette Fulbright Fulson. Do not think that we are finished. Oh no, we will never be finished, never done, until the light of justice is behind every eye. Do not think that we will be silent. No. There will not be silence until the world has sung the names of the dead with full throats, and still we will sing on. Do not think fear is the end of us. Oh no, you are broken in mind and heart if you even imagine that our fear for our lives is the end of this story. We are braver than you have ever conceived, and you will not be the end of us. We have come to take back the world that is the inheritance of better children, better lovers, better days. There will be love again, but justice is our demand now. You will not take us down. We are endless, firelit, determined, and we are coming for you. Our closing music is Come and Go With Me. As we extinguish this flame, let us remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead. That's the end of our service. Remember that next week we will actually be back in the building and we will be having chili. So keep that in mind. Please join us for coffee and conversation right after the service. Go in peace.